So now we move on to another classical story. In fact, I think most of just looking through our stories here, I think most of them this month are classical. They're from the Roman or Greek world. I don't know. I don't often like being so Roman focused, but there have been some good stories coming out of classical archaeology, and this one has been deemed to be a Roman Biro, with a joke on the side of it. And again, this is one that you sent me, and you can see why I've been thinking that you've been optimistic this month. This is actually quite nice.
It is. It's. I picked it up from an article by the journalist, cultural journalist Dalia Auberge in the Observer, and it's headlined "Roman Biro complete with joke found at London building site." Now, earlier on, I mentioned the silly season. One of the things that happens in the silly season is people put out press releases because they got more chance of being noticed.
Yeah.
Because the papers are expecting to have less, their pages full of less of the sort of regular political and economic news, and so that is perhaps one of the reasons why this month we're looking at these stories. It's just because the press releases have gone out and they've been picked up by the nationals and other media outlets, and they're being covered at greater length than they would have done normally. But anyway, what Dalia writes, it's about a Roman stylus that turned up during the excavations for the new headquarters of Bloomberg. Absolutely, Bloomberg. Anyone who knows London, it's close to Cannon Street Station. It's close to the River Walbrook, which was very important in the geography of Roman London. It's quite famous in the geography of Roman London, it's now being the excavation actually was a while back, but it ended in 2014. But it's now going through post-ex. They've got 14,000 artifacts to work through, and this is one of them. And it's an iron stylus. It dates from around about AD 70, so very close to the beginnings of Roman London. And there's been there've been some wonderful inscriptions have come out of that and other recent excavations. Relating to Roman Londoners, including the earliest reference to to London as a place.
Okay.
But
Londinium,
aye. But it's not quite as snappy as a modern meme, as we talked about in the previous segment, because the translation is "I have come from the city." This is the stylus talking. "I've come from the city. I bring you a welcome gift with a sharp point that you may remember me. I ask, if fortune allowed, that I might be able to give as generously as the way is long and my purse is empty." It has you rolling in the aisles, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's sort of...
Well, in the article that we're showing below, that someone's compared it to a modern one that might read, "I have come from the city, or the big city, and all I got was this lousy pen." It's that kind of thing, and I can understand that there's probably humour bound in the notion of an inanimate object speaking to you.
Here's why. Now, to give you interesting cultural differences. This is one that was issued by the London Borough of Newham during the Olympics, which I picked up, and it has a rainbow graphic, and then it just says "Be inspired."
Okay.
It's a little bit pithier.
Yeah.
And I've got another one here from the Cats Protection League. "I love cats."
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, that's good.
So again, it's slightly more economic. It's slightly more economic than the than that Roman example. But no, one of the other reasons I love this is those modern examples that. The more things change, the more they stay the same. I know the past is another country. The Romans weren't like us, and there's lots of arguments how we, in Victorian times and Edwardian times in particular, the Brits like to see themselves as a reincarnation of the Roman Empire. There's that famous, very good book called Roman Officers and English Gentlemen about the early studies of the Roman army.
Incidentally, thank you for saying that, and so I didn't have to say all that. On you go.
No, I just think, and again, that's one of the reasons I'm sure that it's been put out as a press release. It's very approachable. It's a piece of archaeology that is immediately recognisable.
It is
Not
relatable.
that there's anything wrong with that at all. Showing what we do and the humanity of what we do at all levels. Actually, in terms of the people of the past who we study and the reactions of the people who are doing the studying. I think it's a great story.
And it is a great story, and it also it's a touchstone to one of the most immediate things about archaeology. And every now and then, we reflect on this kind of thing in the watching brief, and that is that actually, I know, seasoned and archaeologists, of course, you will as well, who still get very excited at the prospect of having uncovered something that they've just found and that hasn't been seen since possibly it was last seen by the person who owned it or made it in the ground. There's an immediacy, there's a little spark of recognition, and to have something that is essentially a very relatable Biro-like thing with a little slogan on it just reinforces that, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. As much as I would always, and I always do, try and go to great pains to say the Romans weren't us, they weren't like us. This is an excellent example of actually common humanity, an excellent example
Yeah,
of common humanity.
yeah.
And
And
actually,
someone trying to flog tourist souvenirs.
well, yeah, no, exactly. But again,
Yeah,
common humanity. It happens a lot. And,
exactly.
just because I won't be mentioning this in our media picks this month, I'll just sort of highlight that earlier this month, about last week, I think, I watched a Time Team special. I had just had a tooth done. I was feeling a bit groggy, so I was watching they had back-to-back Time Team. So I was watching it. Not that I watch back-to-back Time Team. That's too much of a busman's holiday. But I was watching it. This one caught my attention. It was in Shoreditch Park, I think.
That's right. The Blitz excavation in Shoreditch
Yes,
Park.
yeah.
Yeah,
So a former street which had been levelled
that's right.
by a
Which was
bomb.
a Museum of London Archaeology project,
Yeah,
Mola
yeah,
project.
yeah. It was very good, and it was also
Yeah.
it was also nice actually. As much as sometimes Robinson rubs me the wrong way, it was nice to see him getting very engaged and excited about his backyard. It's more or less where he was from. Um,
Yes.
and so the questions he was asking weren't just sort of broadly trying to guess what people want to have asked. He really had questions that were based on his upbringing. His going, and but what I found interesting about it was that people were asking, and actually he was asking quite legitimately at the beginning, is this archaeology? What's beneath this grass? It's only about 3 centimeters down. And immediately, when they were finding the remains of these houses, these not cellars, I suppose, but the foundations of houses and gas pipes and stuff that was both recognisable but also actually just different enough as well. So things like outside loos and some of the hacks that people did to houses to make their gas supply work better. This kind of thing. Um, they had the same instinct, the same reaction, the same response to the archaeology. This notion of
If I remember
discovering something.
correctly, isn't that the one where they also found the skeleton of a cat, and then various people said, "Oh, actually, I know which that
Yes,
cat was. I know what its name was."
it was called Fluffy. I
That's
think
right.
it
I
was called
remembered
Fluffy.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were two sisters who had been little girls in downstairs, and the cat
Yeah.
was from upstairs. So
Yeah.
it was a wonderful combination of local history, archaeology, but also again that immediacy, the tactile nature of archaeology, cuts through, and embraces so many of our senses, and it's all epitomized in something like this. So it's pithy, it's glib, it's at some point, or on the wrong day, I would even see it as lazy reporting. But actually, I think this sort of thing is very nice. And so I know I've gone round the houses there, no pun intended with the Shoreditch thing, but but I just find it interesting that no matter the time period, actually, I think it's possible to connect with material and material culture. In a very similar way, I think, isn't it? I mean, so I mean, actually, maybe you've had similar experiences, for example, with Shooter's Hill, this kind of thing. Even though it's within living memory, you're embracing and engaging with this material and these structures in your landscape, I suppose.
I think there's also very much a relationship with an artifact that somebody has touched so intimately in the way that you do with a pen or a stylus or a cup or something like that, it brings you very close to the person that used it. Well, I've got a 4th century mortarium which came out of a spoil heap, actually, which is how I managed that. I've got it at home. It was uncontextualized.
Right.
And
Did you log it nonetheless?
this was going back 40 years, so probably not.
Oh, naughty
No,
Brockman!
no, I know. I shall be barred forever from the membership of the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists.
I'm amazed a helicopter hasn't turned up and people aren't smashing through your window right now. You know.
Actually, there's the special forces of the CIFA are actually fast roping down in my back garden as we speak. The disciplinary committee. Yeah, no, I use it as a teaching aid, and people know Mortaria. They have a spout.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I use I let when I'm teaching adults or kids, actually, and it works for everybody. It's such an evocative thing. You can actually put your thumb in the spout, and if you look, you can draw it across in exactly the same way that the potter did when they were making the spout. And you can even actually tell they were right-handed.
Right.
It's a right-handed drag.
Yeah.
And you can tell that from the angle. And it's a very, very evocative thing for people to do. It's like when you find the famous, why else are museums full of tiles where the cat or the dog walked across while they were still drying? That kind of thing. It's these things that, as Mortimer Wheeler said, archaeology is digging up people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and people are drawn to people. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.